We are live. What is up, swimmers and swimmers? Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. Just getting over some illness, as you just heard, but should be rearing to go today. I'm joined by the swim scribe himself, David Clossy from St. Cloud, Minnesota. David, what's up? I feel like it's been a minute since we've done a breakdown. How's it going?
It has been a minute. I'm excited to be here talking some more about swimming. I feel like we got a lot of really interesting things on the horizon, and obviously a ton of news has kind of been happening and a lot of discussion about that over the past week or so. And this probably has got a fun list of topics today.
Yeah, I feel like Mel and I just did it last week, and we had a ton to talk about, and there was so much speculation, there was so much news to dissect, and then 1 week later, sure enough, we have a slew of really interesting topics, and really great swimming happened and going to be happening this week. So we're diving into all of that, but at the forefront this week is obviously the NCAA announced a sweeping new format for the NCAA Championships that will be in March. This includes an entirely new event lineup. This includes, eradicating B final night swims. So they will still score 9th through 16th place at the NCAAs, but that will be, it's timed finals. So you swim in prelims. If you're 9th through 16th, that's your spot. That's what you score. And then they will only swim the 1 through 8 A final at night again. And then also the qualification process looks a little bit different. Instead of A and B standards as they normally did, and then just going through and selecting the top X amount of athletes. I know that number was different for men and women. That, you can qualify by winning your conference championship, which will get a lot more mid-major athletes to the NCAA championships. And there's been a ton of chatter about the fairness of that, about the viability of that, specifically in swimming. I know in sports like basketball, that's a really popular way to get those mid-major teams into the NCAA tournament. And then that's how you sometimes get these Cinderella stories, especially in the March Madness brackets of, they win a few games and all of a sudden they are in the mix to win a national title. Swimming doesn't always necessarily work that way. And so it's been a hot topic, and we reported that these changes were in the works or were being proposed last March. I remember talking to Arthur Albiero, who is the president of the CSCAA. I believe that's the correct title. But he was the one, certainly at the forefront. He told us about these changes and these proposed changes at the NCAA championships last year. And sure enough, they happened. They are happening now. And so it's going to be a completely new look NCAA championships. So David, let's dive into this. Just your initial thoughts on these sweeping changes. And if you have opinions, there's pretty much 3 different boxes of changes, right? What do you think of each of these boxes?
Yeah. So, because I do have my thoughts written down and organized for each of those boxes, and I'm going in order from the things that have made people the least mad to most mad from what I've seen. Because from what I've seen, as someone who reads probably too many SwimSwam comments and also comments on other social media posts and stuff like that, not a lot of positive reception to these changes. And I will say the one thing that I overall do kind of dislike about these changes is the fact that they were announced after the season has already started. I think if you're going to announce it at this point, maybe it should be for the next season, or it should have been announced sooner. There is something about the timing of the announcement. I wish that, especially when it's like, no, the changes aren't going to happen. Never mind, they're happening.
Yeah.
That timing
wonky. Yeah,
definitely. I do find myself in agreement that is kind of annoying, negative to it. But the one that I think has caused the least amount of annoyance for people is the new schedule. Nothing super stands out, and I honestly like the idea of changing it up. I think it might be beneficial, because I understand the reason why they're doing it. They're trying to order it have more exciting events towards the end of the meet. I think at a certain point, you're really splitting hairs and getting subjective. You're not going to start arguing, well, people actually do on average like the 100 backstroke a bit more than the 200 IM. And so we're putting it here and here. I do think, though, from a swim fan perspective, kind of would like it if they maybe switched out a few events each year, just to have more events at the front of the meet, more at the end of the meet, to kind of see. Imagine if in 2017, the 100 freestyle was on the first night. That was when Dressel went 40.00. What would he have got? Because he always got super tired from doing all those relays. And there's other examples for other athletes. And, we see that at the World Championship schedule, never set in stone. Olympic schedule, never said. We saw changes right in the lead up to Paris with Swift went around for Marchand, moving the schedule around to try and make some more excitement. I appreciate the effort for it, even though I do think at a certain point you're splitting hairs on it, but just moving events around, I think is super beneficial. And unless you're doing something completely stupid, like putting the 50 and 100 freestyle in the same session, I think it's hard to ruffle a bunch of feathers by changing that around. New qualifications. I do like the fact that they streamlined into one time standard rather than having the A and the B standards, because at a certain point it kind of really didn't matter other than adding extra events when it comes to determining that cut line. Someone who is 1/100th away from the A standard and is in the B standard, they're still going to qualify. I don't know if that's ever been a time where someone in that proximity to the A standard would have missed it. I think just for ease of understanding and explaining it to people that don't live and breathe in the NCAA swimming world, probably is for the best. Obviously, the bigger one here is the fact that we have those conference champions automatically, if they have the standard, automatically getting a berth to the NCAA championships, which we can already know is going to create a scenario at the end of the year where a swimmer that is 1, 2, 3 below the cut line would have qualified in any other year, but gets bumped out because there's other qualifiers ahead of them that were slower. That scenario is going to happen, and that is a little unfortunate, though I do think there is a lot of benefit from having these conference champions automatically go into the meet. You mentioned the mid-major representation, which does work a lot better in other sports. I think swimming is just kind of neat and showcases more schools and stuff like that. That's actually not the main reason why I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of having that moment where a swimmer touches the wall and immediately knows that they qualified for the championship meet. Because the one thing I really dislike about the way, and I understand why the NCAA does it, because they want to control the overall number of athletes at the meet. So they set that target number, then they go through line by line and add it in. If you're swimming week 1 of a conference championship and there's 2 more weeks as you wait for everyone else to trickle in and you're watching the time, so you don't get that moment where that you qualified, because it's not like some other meets or at the high school level in a lot of states where there's like a cut time, you're either in or you're out, or just placement at the meet. And I like creating that moment. I kind of wish that we could change it so that way it is more on a cut line, or having a regional qualifying meet, kind of like diving zones, or I think gymnastics does like a regionals too. That would probably be a lot more administrative and travel costs, which at this realm in college athletics isn't super feasible. But it on a wish list next to the NCAA dual meet tournament everyone wants, that would be a nice one in there.
That brings up a good point too, just of like the ethos of swimming, right? and this goes back to maybe the age group or high school level of like getting a cut, right? Like going for a certain time that you need. And I think everyone has been in or seen that situation where you're at X swim meet and X swimmer is going for their sectional cut or their division cut or their Olympic trials cut. And like you have that moment, as you said, when they touch the wall, you look at the clock and then you either scream your head off or you're like, oh, and it's magical. And that is a huge part of swimming. And again, everyone in swimming has experienced that. To bring that to the college level, because as you said, now it's like, that was a great swim and you win a good time. Is that good enough? We don't know yet. We have to wait and see. And eliminating that and bringing more of those, oh, this is it, we know moments. I like that idea.
Yes. And I do also think so. A lot of all that is very from the athlete's point of view. It's helpful for them to know. It's nice for them to have that moment. I also think that it is because most of these changes are in line of trying to improve, broadcasts for the NCAA. We'll get to that with the third one.
Bring eyes on the sport.
Yes. And to just, I think, make it more cohesive for them to follow. Having that, this is also, even though, yes, we swim nerds know that it probably has never actually, I don't know a Power 4 conference champion that would have missed the cut line. That'd probably be an exceptionally slow year, but that is still for either the in-venue announcement or those doing the broadcast. It's such an easy storyline for every single event to package around it that you can go, boom, so-and-so has now punched their ticket to the NCAA championships as soon as they touch it, in addition to being the SEC champion or whatever. I think that moment, being able to package it that way, you can drive a lot of extra excitement, because if someone doesn't follow swimming, but they, oh, hey, the school I go to is hosting this swim meet. I heard that we have some fast swimmers. I'm going to go check it out. And you have, if you have a particularly electric announcer in the venue and they're able to very succinctly frame it rather than being like, and with that time, they're currently 12th in the nation. They should be on the cut line. That, it's a lot easier to understand for anyone that is a newer viewer to swimming, which is who you should be targeting if you're trying to grow it, because everyone starts out as not knowing anything about swimming.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, our commenters are mentioning it on the stream right now. Certainly a lot of commenters have drawn parallels to track and field, how they have regionals to qualify for nationals, and the winners of the regionals go to nationals, and again, it makes the sport more basic, right? It's not this huge math equation or huge numbers game of like, okay, well, they're top 30 in the nation, but compared to the other top 30 in the nation in a so-and-so event, it's just like, if you're a normal swim fan, you could go to this swim meet that's being hosted in your town and be like, hey, I'm going to see tonight alone, I'm going to see 8, 10, 12 athletes all qualify for the national championships, like at this mid-major conference meet. And that, I would assume, brings a lot of excitement, not only to that event and those fans, but also the fans that could be watching at home, to be like, oh, we know that they're going to be at nationals, like getting to compete for maybe a national title.
Yeah, and I think that storyline, I do understand and sympathize with the fact that whoever is one below, whoever's the first or second alternate into the meet, that is gonna suck. That's the kind of thing that if I was in that position as an athlete, I would definitely be pretty annoyed about, just being like, man, if only I swam that time last year, I would have been able to go. And that does kind of suck. And I think it's one of those things where any changes that we're making, I would love to see. We'll never see it realistically, but I would love to see any kind of data impact on viewership numbers, either in venue. Ticket sales and stuff like that are probably more likely to be seen, but like streaming numbers on any platform, or even just like retention for people, or even just anything anecdotally that we can see of more social media posts about swimming. Because it's kind of nice when you see things move beyond our very hyper focused bubble and stuff like that. If that ability to very clearly have, they are going to the NCAA championships and also create these like really enthusiastic smaller fan bases around these mid-major schools, around their NCAA qualifiers and stuff like that, could be a worthwhile trade-off, even if it is, again, unfortunate for those that will find themselves in that scenario at the end of the season.
Yeah, and I know that it is not ideal because swimming is a time-based sport after all, but at the NCAA championships, it's also about who gets their hand on the wall first. And that's, for a lot of conference meets, that's what it's about too. And I think you're going to have those athletes who just miss it no matter what. Right. And so I do like this change because, again, it simplifies the sport. It changes, and overall, or more importantly to me at least, we're just trying something new, and we're trying something that has worked for another sport, and that another sport has been doing for a long time, that is very similar to ours and has had success with. So then the third change is sorry, I'm blanking. The third change is
no more B finals.
No more B finals.
Which is the one that at least right out of the gate, I feel like more of the discussion has shifted towards the conference championships that, we've been seeing more information and data about that. But at least initially, the elimination of B finals being contested at the final session was a very hot topic. And I understand that I'm about to make a lot of people very annoyed when I say this. I think the backlash is a little blown out of proportion because, like you mentioned at the start, those points aren't going anywhere. They're just being effectively done as a timed final in the morning. 9 through 16 are just going to be locked into where they were. Yes, it is unfortunate that you lose the ability to try and better your time, better your placement, have that extra swimming. But this is, again, something that's done in the name of the broadcast. And I think that I've always, in a lot of even in Worlds, Olympics like that, I think tightening up a broadcast to be as much of a focus on the racing as possible is a benefit, because anyone who goes, oh man, I heard about that swimming championship, they go on, and it's the middle of a B final of a 500 freestyle, is if you're not already there watching for the love of swimming because you enjoy watching swimming as a whole, there's not really, oh cool, that whoever won touched first, they just placed ninth,
right?
Compared to if you just have the A finals, every single race that you're going to be watching is the stakes built in. Whoever touches the wall first is going to be an NCAA champion. Just having that stripped out, because that's nothing to say that a B finalist isn't impressive. You're top 16 in the country, you're scoring points, and you get to do that from the morning. And I think any other attempt to replace the B finals, like, what do you put them before the meet? But then that's going to create a whole kerfuffle of what if you qualify for a B final and an A final, then you got to get to the pool that much earlier to get swim that, then cool down, then warm back up. That could be a way to do it, but I think that might cause even more issues, especially logistics of having the pool space. You definitely can't do it at night. Well, you're going to get home at midnight before your prelims the next day. They're going to be stuck in the B final again because you didn't get any sleep.
It is tricky, and I wouldn't hate the idea of having the B finals before the broadcast, like, before the A finals. It would be a logistical nightmare, certainly for the coaches and the staff, let alone the swimmers. And it might need to invest in some
cots on the pool deck.
It would certainly discourage doubles, right? Which I wouldn't hate either, honestly, because then swimmers might have to diversify. They might have to specify with events. I mean, but the reality is, like you said, when you're watching the Olympics, when you're watching the World Championships, you're not watching a race that is deciding ninth place, right? Like, you're watching a race to either see the semifinal, who's going to get into the final, or you're watching the race to see who wins a gold medal.
And a lot of swim fans already don't like semifinals.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, and they only put semifinals in to have more airtime because people were invested. And college swimming is not at that point yet where they need to add more time because people are so invested. They need to subtract time so that people will become more invested. And so honestly, David, I'm with you that I don't hate this decision, because I think one thing it also does is it also puts an emphasis on the rest of the season for the coaches and athletes. Because you are, like, chances are, if you're swimming at NCAAs, you're not going to get a second swim in this format. And that's not the point of NCAAs. The point of NCAAs is not to get a second swim. The point is to place as high as you can and fight for a team title, right? I mean, like, again, basketball teams aren't going to NCAAs thinking, oh, I want to score as many points as I can. Like, each individual athlete isn't be like, I really want to score my career high right now, or I really want to score, like, have the most assists I've ever had in a game. Like, obviously they want that, but the goal is to win. And so if you're going for best times, if you're going for best, or, season best, or trying to perform your best, you still have the conference championships, right? But then also it puts an emphasis on the dual meets on the rest of the season and swimming fast, which we've already seen an emphasis put on the last few years of just going really fast times in season, at mid-season, right? I mean, we're seeing more and more athletes go their fastest times of the year at dual meets. Ilya Karun just went 137 in the 200 fly, which we're going to get to. And that might be the fastest time he goes all season in that event. Realistically, it was the last time he did it. And that's okay, because that's just going to get more interest. It's going to generate more eyes on the sport throughout the whole season. And then it's going to leave the NCAAs for the prime event, the main event. And people don't care what times you go at NCAAs. They care who wins.
And I have two more points on the B finals. That one is that this is actually not super foreign to swimming and diving as a whole, because diving already works like this. Diving already scores up to 16 points, and you do 11 dives in the morning, and then the top 8 get a chance to repeat their 6. I can't remember if it's ops or vols. I never remember which one is which. 6 of their dives to try and improve their placement. 9 through 16 are locked in from the earlier sessions. Also, maybe part of the reason why I feel the way I do is because why I have such a cold black heart towards B finals is that I was a distance swimmer. I was never getting second swims because they didn't exist. I swam, especially at the D2 level, where I also had the 1,000. So 2 of my events, I was never seated in the top 8. I was always scoring from the morning. So I can relate to that. And it was honestly sometimes kind of nice.
I mean, yeah. And I see why people are upset. I see why, as especially athletes, coaches, and true swim fans want to see more swimming, but I don't think more swimming is the point of these changes. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see if this does generate what they want it to, if this does get more eyes on the sport, but also how it changes the season and how it changes the sport and how it changes different coaches and athletes' approaches to the season. Because again, NCAAs is going to become much more about, can I get top 8? If it's not realistic for me to get top 8, then what am I doing at this meet really? And what maybe, how should I change my approach to the rest of the season because of that? Because sure, I can still score, but I'm only swimming once a day if I'm not getting top 8, and I'm not on a relay. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think we're going to see kind of a big boom at conference championships. Some teams that maybe wouldn't normally rest or rest as much, I think we're going to see them maybe do that a little bit more. And especially with the added emphasis of qualifying for NCAAs at conference championships, with the win. So and again, we're getting comments right now. I agree that it's going to be weird to not see B finals swim at meets like this, but I am really interested to see how these sweeping changes affect the championships. I'm curious, David, and transparently, I'm going to have to step off for just a minute to go get my charger because I forgot to plug my laptop in. It's going to die otherwise. So I'm going to have to keep you talking for a minute. What do you think of the diving, half the swimming session, 3 dives, and then the other half of the swimming session?
I do like that change because I think it's good to have like 2 fronts, right? On one side, you have anyone who is there, as weird as it is realistically, it feels so weird having that side of the screen be blank now. Realistically, as weird as it is for any of our audience here to understand, someone who's just watching for diving, there's probably at least some that exist. Splitting it up, maybe they'll stay for the swimming in the middle. And I do think it is better to have 2 smaller breaks rather than one pretty substantial diving break in the middle. I also disliked that at like conference championship meets as an athlete as well, especially when it's like when you're on that last relay and it's like, oh my God, I hope my legs don't fall asleep while I'm here. So I do think that is a benefit. And one more thing with the B finals that I do think, because like you're saying, like, being able to see it and stuff like that, I think in order for this to go over as best as possible, one, we need a quality prelims broadcast with commentary, not just microphones in the venue. That is, in my opinion, the only way that this can actually work effectively, is if there is a good way to watch it, because especially now that there are scoring swims happening in every single prelim session, not just for the 1650. I also think that would give them the ability to, the way, because everything is broadcast focused, the way they're packaging it in the broadcast, the way I would like to see it if I was in the control room at ESPN, before you do the walkout, you do a little 30-second package, like flashback, kind of how sometimes they do it when there's notable things that happen during the prelims in world championships. They'll have Rowdy kind of give a little, oh, by the way, we saw this happen in the morning, we saw out of heat so and so, they clocked a personal best time of whatever and whatever event. They are our 9th fastest qualifier. They missed the A final, but they did score whatever university, this many points. Just that little package. You can see some visual of them swimming. They get that spotlight for what would have been because they already would have gotten that if they won the consolation final. Put that highlight on them. And I think it also is kind of necessary to introduce it at that point to make the running point totals make sense, because they just go, here's where the points already are from the mornings, and just like throw in all the prelim, scoring swims at once and show how it kind of redistributes everything. It might make the pacing, the meet, feel a little bit weird. So I think just keeping the introduction of the points the same way it would be if you were swimming them, just show them to the audience, update the graphic, swim the A final, then show the next one to the audience, update the graphic, swim the A final.
Yeah. No, yes. And I think that is one really important thing that has to be implemented with these changes, is that they're trying to broaden the audience. They're trying to make it more TV friendly. The production value has to be there. We we made the changes. These changes are happening this year, this NCAA championships, which is, great, terrible, whatever you think. But the powers that be now have to also put in the work to make sure that this is a quality product that they have tailored and created, and that they are presenting it as such. One commenter is saying, I don't see how removing the B finals helps create a better product, considering ESPN doesn't show B finals when they replay the NCAA championships. Fair, but hopefully this will be something that people are going to want to watch live. And as such, you want it to be high octane, exciting, viewer friendly, and easy to consume. And that is all, I think, very possible if you have a good production team, and if you put elbow grease and legwork into producing a quality product. And they have laid the foundation to produce what I think would be a fun, viewer friendly competition. And now they have to do the production side of it and really make it a cool thing to watch. And like you said, I think that starts with prelims, with the beginning of the meet, and not just having it be the meet announcer. But
not just sticking a camera on the corner and be like, good enough.
Seriously.
I'll take back every positive thing I said if they do that again.
Yeah. If they don't change that aspect of it, then a lot of these changes are moot.
Yeah, they're giving themselves the opportunity to make it better. The changes that they're making are not inherently making it better. They're laying the foundation, but if you just have a foundation, that's kind of crappy house.
Yeah, it is. So those are the changes, and that's, we've been talking for almost half an hour on this, so we'll move on, but this will be a huge topic of discussion throughout the rest of the NCAA season, especially because it just happened this week, and it is going to be happening at this year's NCAA championships. So we'll talk much more about that moving forward, but let's do a little recap of what NCAA action we have seen thus far. This weekend for me was highlighted by two huge meets. The ASU had a meet with UNLV where they broke perhaps the attendance record for any dual meet, but certainly for the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. And then UVA had an inter squad, their annual blue versus orange, where we saw some really sensational times as well. What stood out to you the most, David, from this week in college swimming?
Yeah, those are two really good picks for meets. UVA inter squad. I do kind of like that they do the off distances too in there with 150s, 300s, 600s. I think it's a smart thing to do for an inter squad, so that way you can focus a bit more on the racing friendly competition, kind of remove the expectations you have either during that meet for the athletes or in their dual meets after the fact when they're all beaten down and tired. Although UVA is pretty good at going fast a lot of the time. So highlights for Thomas Heilman and Maximus Williamson are looking good so far. Those are definitely the probably the new additions in the NCAA world that people are kind of going to be keeping their eyes on a little bit this season. And the fact that I think they both won 3 events at inter squad meet is a good start for it too. I do like the fact that they're on opposite teams too. Obviously, that's kind of how a coach is going to distribute it, but that makes a fun little dynamic there too, as two pretty hot pickups. Other than that, the UVA women just look all around generally fast, which is, it wasn't. You were looking at a team that is now hoping to extend their winning streak into kind of another era of this team, and so far it looks like a good foundation. It's not one of those scenarios where it's like, oh, there's no way that they're already out of the picture and stuff like that. It looks like they have a really good base to be able to continue to build on. And they just had some all-around pretty fast swims there. And I think we also had some pro races at the end of that meet. For me, the standout was basically the Walsh sisters and Kate Douglas. And we did see Douglas go a new personal best on the 100 breaststroke with a 57.35.
Not too shabby.
It's like, I think the old one was like a 58.1 or 58.2 from a mid-season meet, which means that probably a bit more preparation she has right now, unless she's doing some kind of drop taper for World Cups.
Yeah, and I'm guessing maybe a little more focused on short course at this time, just with the World Cups coming up, but also I think we've seen her work on her 100 breast and her speed a little bit more, or her breaststroke speed specifically. She almost won the world title this summer in that 100 breast final. She ended up getting silver with a 105 low. But so I think this is kind of in line with what we've been seeing from her, I guess, in the 24-25 season. As far as Kate Douglas, as far as the undergrads, yeah, like the UVA women are doing their thing, even sans Walsh sisters and Kate Douglas and the myriad of other fantastic women that they've had on their roster throughout the years, because they've just retooled in a big, big way. The sprint team, or the sprint core, has lost zero momentum even after losing the Walsh sisters, because now they've got Sarah Curtis and Bren Greenwald, among others, who they have like 5 women who have already split 21 plus on a relay this season, which is just ridiculous. And then again, the UVA men are coming. One of my favorite things was the mixed 200 medley relay, where you saw Maximus Williamson, who's been taking on breaststroke duties, which is really fun to see because he's already split a 52 low in the 100. He split 24.2 in the 50 breast, which isn't crazy, but for, a meet in September or early October, like, not bad. This is, September. Not bad at all. And then Thomas Heilman splitting 20.0. Again, it's a sign for good things to come, I think, for the Virginia men. So, yeah, exciting to see that from them. And then again, for ASU, Ilya Karun, I guess we've become accustomed to him swimming crazy times all season, but he wasn't the only one, but he certainly was the highlight for this 43.9 and 137.9 in the 100 and 200 fly in October, on October 3rd. I mean, these are times that would make top 8 easily at NCAAs, right? It's just, it's crazy to think about. He was very close to his best times. He was 100th off his best time in the 200 fly, and not maybe half a second off in the 100 fly. He split another 18.9. He now has like, I think 6 of the top 10 50 fly splits of all time on a relay. So he is just kind of making that event his own. But we also saw a lot of other speed from his ASU men teammates who have also retooled in a very big way. And I think there were some comments saying that they could be the favorites in 4 of the 5 relays at this point, in the 4 shorter relays, with the likes of Adam Chaney splitting 20.2 in the 50 back, and also 41.6 on the 400 free relay. You have Remy Fabiani splitting 18.4 in a 50 and 41.7 leadoff on the 100 free. So there's so much speed coming out, and then that's not even including, their guy Johnny Kulo, who just made the world champs team this summer. So a lot of really good things seeming to happen for the ASU men.
Yeah, Fabiani was actually the other one I had highlighted, other than obviously Ilya. And the other crazy thing too, he had that fast, that relay leadoff in the 100 free, that fast 50 free split. Also 18.89 in the individual 50 free, which is the first man under 19 this season. So he gets to take that title. I think we had 18-second swims relatively early last season, because that's just becoming more and more standard in the NCAA. I don't think it was quite this early. I think this is a touch earlier than it was last year, which is, I guess, trending the way we would expect it to. But I feel like you mentioned the crowd too, is obviously super, super exciting. It was an insane, they had overflow on the decks, I think. And it was spearheaded by a professor at ASU that was offering extra credit points to students.
Awesome.
That because I think I read a comment, because I started seeing a bunch of, and then this is one of those things where it's working, where I'm seeing TikToks of ASU students who are like, I'm at a swim meet because my professor is giving me 15 extra credit points. So it's expanding beyond that. And some of them look like they might be ones that are entertaining enough to gain some traction outside of the general swimming community. Same way you see swimmers and people doing swimming stuff on Pat McAfee's college game day stuff, just that kind of swimming being around and entertaining to people beyond just every 4 years, even in like small, goofy ways. And I do think that this, more than anything, the fact that had such an impact in the venue and also potentially on social media after the fact, shows that still got to find ways to creatively market your meet. One thing I will always say, as we try and make meets more exciting, obviously fast swimming is a way to make swim nerds super interested in swimming. Mm-hmm. Not everyone, how many people in that venue, beyond just watching how much Ilya was winning those events by, knew the ramifications of a 137.9 in October? Probably not very many. They could tell it's fast just by looking at it, because he looks fast, because he is fast. But, in general, beyond fast swimming, or even if you make a really spectator-friendly meet, we can never ignore the incentives to get people into the pool, or even let them know what happens. It doesn't matter if you make the best dual meet in history, and if you find out about it after the fact, there's no way to go back and watch it. You can never go to a meet you don't know is happening. And even little things like that, a professor taking the initiative to get people to watch and be honored to go attend, or handing out free team swag to the first 50 people that show up, or something like that. Or I think it's Northwestern did things where you could get in better position to buy like basketball tickets if you accumulated points by watching other sports as well. I know that when I was in college, I think this was just through the student athlete advisory committee, but there was basically like you could earn points like for your team, like the team that you competed for in the SAC Cup, by going and scanning your ID at other events and stuff like that. And so I knew that at our swim meets, we actually had a decent number of random athletes from other sports, that some of them because they knew swimmers and were watching because they're roommates or whatever, but some are just like, yeah, I scanned, should get the SAC points, and now I'm watching a swim meet.
Yeah. Hey, why not? You know, I mean,
And
it's
I
a
did that
great.
too. I've gone to soccer games for that reason when I was in college.
Yeah, I mean, I like we were talking about for NCAAs. You know, it is about the production and the marketing as much as as it is about the product itself, right? And I think at this point, ASU is reliably a great product. ASU swimming is reliably a great product, especially outdoor venue at sunset. They're excited. They're swimming fast times. But again, doesn't even matter if they're swimming fast times. They look fast. They're dueling this team who they dominated. And so the fans are going to love it, right? The students are going to have a good time. You just have to get the butts in seats or parking garages as the case was in this one. But yeah, it was really exciting to see that, really exciting to see a lot of really great meets happening and having a little bit more bigger impact. So good stuff in the NCAA world. And Jesus, a lot of fast times so far. So moving on from NCAA swimming to world swimming, we've got the World Cup in Carmel, Indiana coming up this weekend. It is the first stop in the 3-leg circuit for this 2025 World Cup. The other stops will be Westmont the following weekend and Toronto the weekend after. And it is a star-studded lineup at this Carmel stop. Notably, it is the only leg of the tour that Leon Marchand will be competing in. But there are so many other names: Summer McIntosh, Gretchen Walsh, Adam Peaty, Kaylee McEwen, Reagan Smith, Kate Douglas, Molly O'Callahan, Hubie Koch. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. So, David, who are you most excited to watch compete in Carmel in short course meters this weekend?
I mean, in general, I'm super excited for the World Cup. I think that is a really good product of in-season swimming. I think the number one thing that I would love to see a meet like the Pro Sim Series steal from it is the stop winners and the overall series winners, using it because it gives the narrative through line for the meet and for the series. Marchand, like you said, is going to be the only stop we're going to see him at. I'm really curious what form he's going to be in, because we saw him at all 3 stops last year, and he definitely got better as the meet went on. He's also in a kind of different training situation where he's still in home at France at that point, probably took a bit bigger of a gap after the Olympics last year than he would have at Worlds this year. And so I'm curious at that first stop how, Marchand-esque he's going to be, because he didn't really look like the classic Land Marchand during the first 2 stops of the World Cup last year, as he just was kind of getting back into the swing of things. And so that's obviously going to be intriguing. He's only swimming 1 stop. He's out of contention for the series win, but he could try and vie for that stop win. I do think on the women's side, the two that I'm just the most excited to see dogfight it out for the entire series are Gretchen Walsh and Summer McIntosh. Likely very little and probably no direct overlap in actual events. But the nice thing about the way the scoring in the World Cup works is that doesn't matter for the overall series title. Some of the most exciting swimming last year was between Kate Douglas and Reagan Smith. They don't overlap at all. And one of my favorite moments was after, I think it was Reagan Smith's final swim, where she's about to be interviewed. She's looking, she goes, dang it. Once the points came through and she realized that that Kate beat her for the overall series title
by 0.1 or something ridiculous.
It was 0.1. Yeah, I was looking at it recently. And it's only because Kate Douglas had such an insane 200 breaststroke world record. She was able to score over 60 points on that stop. She went 60.2.
Yeah.
60 would be if you won and tied the world record in 3 events.
Oh my gosh.
She's 60 points because she had enough aqua points to push her over that hump on the aqua points side of the scoring. Crazy. So I think those two, I mean, obviously Gretchen Walsh in short course is terrifying. Summer McIntosh is terrifying anywhere.
Period.
And neither of them were ones that we saw at the World Cup last year, but we did see them both at short course worlds. Gretchen Walsh obviously had one of the greatest swim meets from a pure performance standpoint of all time, and Summer McIntosh set 3 world records, and the fact that is second place at that meet is kind of crazy.
Because Gretchen set 11.
Yeah, so those two are going to be crazy. On the men's side, I'm just really intrigued by Shane Casas and Ilya Karun. I just am really curious what they're going to do because, again, didn't really see him. We barely saw Shane Casas swim any individual events at Short Course Worlds last year, and neither of them were in the World Cup. I'm very interested, especially after what Karun just said. These are both guys that can just throw down.
Yeah.
And that there's some potential overlap in some events depending on how they decide. I mean, Casas can do whatever he wants realistically. Who knows what he's going to swim? And the other pretty high profile, definite actual head-to-head matchup that we're going to be seeing, Regan Smith and Caeleb McEwen. I mean, that is always must-watch swimming. We didn't see McEwen for much of the World Cup series last year. Hopefully she's around for the whole thing this year. I do think, unfortunately, that both of them being there is going to pull them both out of contention of actually winning the series. I don't think Regan Smith is going to be able to be in the conversation because I don't think either of them wins all three. I know McEwen has the history of winning the head-to-head matchup in long course.
Yeah.
But Regan Smith
actually thinking the opposite.
I don't remember. I don't remember how the one. I think McEwen may have got her in the 50 back or whatever. Like the one event they overlapped.
Oh, did she?
I don't remember, and I haven't.
Yeah, I don't remember
myself.
Either.
I feel like I remember her not sweeping that one. But if Regan Smith has some pretty substantial world record margins in those. But at the same time, McEwen has also formerly held some of those world records. So
yeah, no, that's always must see TV, Regan and Kaylee for sure. But just considering it is in North America, two of the stops are in the US and Toronto's. I don't feel like that's that much of a difference. And so I feel like the advantage goes to Regan in my head. Especially because they're both great short course swimmers. Obviously, you said it. They've both held the world records in backstroke, but like Regan and C's, that's a great matchup. To me, I'm like, I think Regan could win the overall series if she has, a sensational series. But as you mentioned at the top, I think it will just be so exciting to see what everyone's form is like. Bob Bowman's crew is just stupid right now. So many people training with him. Summer, Leon, Shane, Hubie. The list goes on. Carson Foster. I don't know if Simone Manuel is going to be there or not. But anyway, there's going to be so many Texas swimmers there who are always great to keep an eye on. I'm really excited to see Adam Peaty just because of his pure star power. That you can't look away when Adam Peaty is swimming because it's like, well, I think at this point, to me, he's the greatest breaststroker of all time, or at least one of the ones where you're like, he could win no matter what. And even if it's short course, even if it's not his specialty, even if he's older and maybe hasn't been super on form for a while, this is his first official race since Paris, and he's doing all 3 World Cup stops. And so you have to assume he's in some kind of form, but it'll be really exciting to see what form that is. Another thing we forgot, Gretchen Walsh is in the 50 back with Regan and Caeleb McEwen. So it's just going to be short course meters is so fun to me to watch because the underwaters play such a bigger part than long course. It's so fun, as an American growing up in the college system, it feels like an extension of that. And then we also get to see some internationals really flex their underwater prowess. Looking at Noe Ponti, who doesn't always get that opportunity, but last year he was the star of the show. I guess until Leon came, but he could have a big flex. And then, like you said, a couple Canadians to watch. Ilya Karun could do some crazy stuff. I don't have as high hopes for Josh Liendo, but he's been on a tear and he could do some great things as well. And so there's just so many athletes that are going to be so fun to watch at this Carmel stop. And I think there's a big chance that this could be the most star-studded, especially with Leon, but then with a lot of the others as well, who might not do all 3 stops. There's going to be some fireworks, I think. So really excited to see how this all goes down. Any other thoughts on Carmel before we move on?
No, just other than general excitement, nothing else for me.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great meet. Tune in. I'm seeing in the comments, you can get tickets to finals for $20. So if you are in the area, if you're interested in going to a swim meet, Carmel's high school natatorium pool is $55 million natatorium in their high school. So this is a state-of-the-art facility. It is hosting one of the fastest international meets of the year. And apparently you can get tickets for $20. So go watch it if you can. Okay, with that, let's finish up with a few quick sink or swims. First up, we saw Cam McEvoy demolish a field in the 25-meter freestyle, which I didn't even know that this kind of dominance was possible. He made this field of, legitimate athletes look like he was racing a bunch of summer league 12-year-olds. He won a 25-meter freestyle by over a second. He went 9.3 in a 25-meter freestyle. Cam McEvoy has truly found some kind of secret to sprinting, and we are just bearing witness at this point. So sink or swim, you would like to see more 25-meter races, David?
Yeah, I'm going to swim that. I think that is probably a nice distance for true sprinting, even more so, I think, than like a long course 50. I think that is just pure explosiveness, translating it through. I mean, the probably most popular track and field event is the 100-meter, which is a 9.5-second race. And so it's right in that same, I mean, generally swimming and track, if you multiply track by 4, or swimming by 4, you hit the track distance. That's like its time equivalent. Mm-hmm. And so that it's like our own version of the 100-meter in track. And I think that is always an exciting event. And watching that, just seeing Cam McEvoy be able to do that, because of course, if any athlete's going to be able to do something like that, is someone that has their training and just dialed into such a precise level like Cam McEvoy. But that was super exciting. I'd love to see that experimented with a bit more and see if there's maybe other athletes that are able to have an equivalent kind of dominance across other strokes.
I had this answer premeditated, so I'm not even being contradictory. I'm sinking it. I think it's great that Cam McEvoy had this platform to sprint a 25, and I think it was awesome to watch him just decimate the field. I don't think this is a race I need to see more of. It's too short. He takes 10 strokes or something. I mean, he doesn't even have an elite underwater, like some of the athletes we're going to see at the World Cup this weekend. So it's like he's swimming more than some others might. And still, I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. I just see him going fast and then it's over. It's a blur to me. I don't totally understand it. It's just like it starts and then it stops and I don't know. So I don't feel the need to watch more 25s. I'm very happy I got to see Cams, but I don't think this is a race I would want to watch.
I think they're a fun occasional exhibition. I would like to see them offered to more athletes. I would not want to see them at the World Cup or World Championships, just to be clear. I think I would like to see them happen more often outside of practices, and especially to see more athletes do that kind of thing, just to see, just to satiate my, like, what would Noe Ponti do in a 25 fly? That would be fun to watch. I would like that.
Would be fun. Fair enough.
Or Gretchen Walsh. Jeez.
Could Noe Ponti beat Gretchen Walsh? Is the real answer. All right. Next up, big news. Caeleb Dressel is now training with sorry, I don't have the specific name, with Jacksonville Aquatics, with his Sporting Jacks Aquatic Club. Yes, Sporting Jacks Aquatic Club in Jacksonville, training with his old coach from the University of Florida, Stee Jungbluth. I do want to note, because a lot of people freaked out because he had posted this post to Instagram on Florida. It was a whole saga. He made this post he was seen training in California, and people were like, "Oh, what's going on?" I think that was just for fun. And then he made this post about, "I'm a Gator forever. Thanks for everything, Florida." And people are like, "Are you changing training bases?" And then he made an Instagram story post saying, "Sorry to freak everyone out. I am not moving or retiring," were his words. And I think it's clear to note the distinction. Could he have been more transparent about this process? Totally. Do I understand that people were annoyed by this? Yes. But it was announced by the club that Caeleb will be training with Steve at Sporting Jacks Aquatic Club in Jacksonville, where notably Caeleb went to high school in Jacksonville. He went to high school in Bowles, which is in Jacksonville. It's not clear what that will look like. It's not clear if he will be training there full time. I mean, people were doing all sorts of Google mapping. I think where he lives, his farm is in, I don't remember the town's name. It's maybe between an hour and a half and 2 hour drive to Jacksonville. And he lives about 20 minutes from Gainesville, I believe. So it might be a situation where he's training with Steve 3 times a week and training with Florida the rest of the time. It might be a situation where he's training with Steve full time. Don't know. I doubt. He's not moving, right? Like, he loves his farm life. He has a family. He has 2 kids. I think he is very committed to those. I don't think he would do anything that would take him away from them permanently, or even in like more than a day or 2 at a time. I don't know his life. I'm just speculating at this point, but to that degree, David, are you sinking or swimming this move with what little information we know about it now?
I am, in most scenarios, probably always going to swim an athlete kind of trying something new, because I think that's always beneficial, especially for someone who has been in the same environment for so long as Caeleb Dressel. And also your point about the move and time like that. When he posted that, whenever speculating on the one Instagram post, my first thought was, there's no shot he's going to ASU or wherever anyone else thinks he's going, because there's no way he's giving up his cows and his lawnmower.
Yeah.
He's too vocal about loving those things. He would probably retire before moving away from those things.
Oh yeah.
But I think, the fact that this is a coach that he has worked with before, not a completely alien move, going back to something more familiar. During his time training with Steve, he accomplished some of the most ridiculous feats from a time perspective that he's reached in Florida. And more of, I am reading this, given what Florida is kind of known for, and the fact that he's going back to a more sprint specialist. I'm reading that as moving maybe a bit more away from a higher volume, more aerobic training style that he's been doing for many years now. He's built his base very well at this point, into more what we're seeing a lot of sprint specialists transition into, which is a lot more of that very specific sprint training. And I imagine that's going to be very beneficial for how Dressel is going to be moving through his swimming career going forward, because I do think that aerobic training was very beneficial to him, because I think a lot of people are like, why is he doing all this extra yardage like that? He doesn't need to. He does up to 100 meters as long as race supposed to be, so that way he can do it a million times at one meet. He can do triples at world championships when he has to do 2 individuals and then a relay swim. He needs that aerobic training to do that. Very unlikely he's going to be doing that at a high level going forward, just as we have so many. One, because I think it makes more sense for him to try and focus down on some events to really maximize the efficiency. Going back to Cam McEvoy, we've seen him do that very well with one event, and he can do that with maybe 2 or 3 events, or try and just keep some relay duties and stuff in there.
Yeah.
So I think switching to that more modern, what we've been seeing work for a lot of athletes, sprint specialization, which is just what I'm assuming is happening with the move, because it would be, I think, a little strange to move away from the training group he's with in whatever capacity, if it's just for a little bit, to then go do the same thing with a further drive. There's got to be some kind of change on a fundamental training level for at least some amount of time for him to do this move. And I think if that's the case, I'm swimming it all day.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is an easy swim. Caeleb knows what is best for Caeleb. Maybe he doesn't know how to market or interact with the public the best for Caeleb.
Or he just thinks it's funny.
Or he just thinks
always
it's
a possibility.
Funny. That is a possibility, which I'm all for that as well. People got to take this with a grain of salt. However, yeah, I think the most interesting aspect, I won't repeat what you said, that I agree with it all. I think the most interesting aspect will really be what events he decides to focus on moving forward, especially specifically to LA 2028, because it could very well be that he focuses on 50 free and 50 fly, right? Like that seems attainable. And it also, Mel mentioned in his last interview with Caeleb, he wants to be a good husband and a good father. And if he can do swimming while doing that, he'll keep doing swimming. And if he can't, then he won't keep doing swimming. And that, training for a 50s seems like the easiest way to do that. I'm really curious what his relationship to hundreds will be like, specifically for relays, right?
Because that's what it always comes back to for me is like, does he drop the medley relay?
Yeah. And it's like, can he give that up? Right? Like obviously the team wants it for him, but I'm really curious where he is at for like, does he have this, responsibility or feeling of responsibility to Team USA to be able to swim a good 100 fly on the relay? Or is he just like, I need to do 50s. That's all I'm doing. Is he really Cam McEvoying, Tony Irvining this thing of like, I'm doing the 50s. Do not put me on a relay. I can't do 100. So I think it will just be really interesting to see what his emphasis is like moving forward. But teaming up with Stee Jungbluth, getting some more sprinty training, swimming that all day, no matter what that looks like. And last but not least, this is not a sink or swim. It's just a question. What meet are you looking forward to most in the NCAA this weekend?
I feel like it's cheating, but the SMU Classic, I believe, is coming up, and that is always a very exciting meet. Otherwise, for dual meet action, we got Florida and UVA, which should be some what was that? Should be a more in-depth look at some of those teams just for that kind of early NCAA season. What are we seeing out of these? But SMU Classic has always got a fast swim here and there that normally marks a swimmer's season best for a few more weeks throughout the season typically, and it's normally a fun meet to dive into the results of. Yeah,
really interested to see so normally it's 6 teams. The SMU Classic is 6 teams. It's only 4 that we reported. There's only 4. Sorry. SMU, Auburn, LSU, and Louisville. So 4 teams. So I'm kind of excited to see what the format looks like with that. Because if you've followed the SMU Classic, if you've ever watched it, it's usually a B final and an A final in a 6-lane pool. Each team of the 6 teams has 1 swimmer in the B final, 1 swimmer in the A final. You can only score with that, and then that's kind of how the meet works. And it's a cool format. It's a 2-day meet. I've attended it before. It's really cool. But yeah, interested to see what that looks like. Another interesting 4-team meet will be Indiana, UCLA, USC, and Texas A&M. I'm so curious as to just how that came to be, because you have like the 2 LA teams, a team from Texas and a team from Indiana. It's happening in LA. I think it's at USC. And so it's kind of cool just to see this like combination of these different teams from all over coming to LA to compete. So excited to see that. We get to see Texas in action versus Alabama, which I'm excited to see as well. And then, as you mentioned, Florida, Virginia, I think that's been a pretty marquee matchup for the last few years. We know that Coach Todd DeSorbo and Coach Anthony Nesty are buds. They were co-Olympic coaches last year in Paris. They've been co-World Championship coaches before. And so that meet has been an exciting one for the last few years. And I think we're going to continue to see really fast swims from that one.
Yeah, I will say, I think the way that quad meet came about is, yes, comment just came in saying that is that USC and UCLA are now in the Big Ten. So I don't know how Texas A&M got themselves invited in there.
Yeah, exactly.
That one's odd to me, but yeah, those three it's always so funny. Like, you see more people talking about college football where like, why are these schools are now in this conference over here?
Yeah,
which is so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, Texas, I guess they're just, hey, we're in between.
We got to meet. Can we hop on board? Yeah, seriously. So it should be fun, but lots of college dual meet action happening this weekend, World Cup happening this weekend. So stay tuned to SwimSwam for all that action. And thank you for tuning in to this breakdown.